Welcome to another episode of Lunch with the Shark. Join us as we dive deep into discussions about business, accounting, and finance to help you build a business that thrives. Now sit back and have a bite with your host, the Shark CFO, Vidal Espinosa.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you had a great weekend. I'm not the Shark CFO Vidal Espinosa, but my name is Jeff Redondo, and I'm the managing partner at Invictus Advisors. So he's actually had to bring his mom to a follow-up doctor's appointment. She had hip replacement surgery a couple weeks ago, and so he is actually with her. So we're obviously wishing her the best and giving her lots of thoughts over the course of the last couple weeks. So far she's doing really great. So keep up the good work, Anita, and we will get out there and do some walking soon. So how was your weekend? Here in San Diego it was raining a little bit. So we mostly stayed inside most of the weekend, but we did have the opportunity to go see the new Kevin Costner movie called Let Him Go. And it was actually a really great movie. So if you get a chance and you're able to get out and check out that movie, I definitely recommend it. It's a suspense thriller. So if you like that type of movie, you definitely, like I said, want to check it out. So did you see what happened this weekend? So Joe Biden, is the presumed winner of the election. So for some people that's great. For some other people it's not so great. But I think over the course of the last week, it feels like everyone's been like on edge or on stress, trying to figure out what the election results will be. But I'm confident that that more than likely Joe will win, and he'll take the country in the direction that he sees fit. So, but since we're on the topic of elections, last week one of the propositions on the California ballot was actually Proposition 22, and Proposition 22 actually gave app-based companies, so like Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, those type. The people there will remain as independent contractors. Now, there's a lot of additional sub parts to the law, but the main thing is that they'll remain independent contractors versus AB 5, which actually was going to categorize them as employees. So, a lot of people were for Proposition 22, and it did pass. So it's actually really ironic because this week we're actually going to be talking about independent contractors. And throughout the whole week, we're going to have different parts of talking about independent contractors. What are the pros and cons of having independent contractors? What are the different ways that you can make sure that you categorize an independent contractor, the way you pay an independent contractor? So there's going to be lots of different pieces to talking about what is an independent contractor. So let's first start off by talking about what is an independent contractor. So the IRS looks at three factors to define an employee versus an independent contractor. Now, the first thing is behavioral control. And what that means is that you are able to influence an employee's behavior. So for example, if they're late to showing up to work, that's actually behavioral control. So that if you write up for a employee for being late, that's part of behavioral control. And for independent contractors, you can't write them up for being late. Financial control is another way. So what that means is that the finances are controlled by the employer. So you're actually issuing them W-2 check, taking out taxes for them, and as the employer, you're taking out taxes for them. So that's another part of financial control for an independent contractor versus a employee. And the other part is the relationship. So is the relationship between an independent contractor and the employer. So employees are told when, where, and how to work. So like I said, so they have to be there 9 to 5. They have to show up at a certain time or at a location, and how are their work designed to do. By contrast, independent contractors work on a project-by-project basis. So what that means is that you may give them a project, and then that's going to be their their sole thing. So it could take them 3 hours or it could take them 30 hours, but they're only going to get paid per contract, right? Later this week, we'll go into more differences on what's an independent contractor versus an employee, and actually give you some examples of what the two is. And we actually will have some concrete examples of clients that have talked to us about specific situations where they may be a little bit crossing the line. And so we want to make sure that we really go over that this week with you and have you understand the differences between an independent contractor and an employee, right? But for today's conversation, now you have enough information so that we can talk about what are some of the costs, the differences between the cost of an independent contractor versus an employee. So everyone thinks, oh, it's going to be cheaper to hire an independent contractor versus an employee. Some cases that's true, and some cases that's not true. And today we're going to talk about the hidden costs of hiring an independent contractor versus an employee, right? So one of the hidden costs that will actually that you will have is the contractor's timing may not match yours. And what I mean by that is, with employees, you could tell them to come in 9 to 5, right? Independent contractor, you can't tell them to come in from 9 to 5. So maybe your business is operational from 9 to 5, but you can't tell an employee, a independent contractor, that they have to work from 9 to 5. And so that's always difficulties. So by law, contractors have the right to dictate their own working hours. So many freelance independent contractors work part-time or non-traditional hours. Like look at Uber or Lyft, for example, right? Their independent contractors can work whenever they want, right? So an independent contractor really has the flexibility of the time, right? And most of these independent contractors don't just work for you. They work for multiple companies. So for example, like let's say they work for one employee or one company from 8 to 12. That's their allocated time that they spend for this one. And then they work from 12 to 4 for another employer. I'm sorry, not another employer, another company. So they will have multiple companies that they work for, not just one, right? So another hidden cost around employee or around independent contractors versus employees is that they're limited on the amount of hours that they can work annually. So according to IRS and common law, an independent contractor can only work a maximum of 1,040 hours, which is equivalent to approximately 4 months of full-time work annually for a single employer. Thanks, Chewy. Yes, that is true. They could actually be from another country. So let's say, for example, like we actually hire independent contractors to do some of our artwork for our social media. And so those are truly independent contractors because we say, this is the task that we want done, and they do it on their time, right? So we may request, hey, we need that back in 3 days. But if they get it back in 3 hours, then the project's done in 3 hours and they can move on to their next project versus maybe it takes 3 days. Now, one of the things that we'll talk about this week is we will make sure that you understand how to create a independent contractor agreement that's really going to help you manage to help put the parameters on an independent contractor around their scope of work, right? So going back to, contractors are legally limited to work 1,040 hours per week. Annually. So a lot of independent contractors for lots of people work more than that. And so technically they're not considered an independent contractor anymore. They're an employee. And so one of the things that we'll talk about a little bit later is about the amount of fees and fines that are allocated to people that misclassify their independent contractors versus employees, right? And that's another true cost that you may not think about as you're hiring your independent contractor, right? Another hidden cost to hiring an independent contractor versus his employee is contract workers will usually have less loyalty for your company. It isn't unusual for independent contractors to be working on several projects for several different clients at one time. And frankly, they generally have to be to be able to make ends meet. So simply by being the virtue of being independent, the contractor is likely to hold less loyalty for any single company. Now, independent contractors are actually responsible for paying their own taxes. And so a lot of times they have to work more to pay off their tax bill, because with employees, the employer pays part of the employment tax, where with independent contractors, they have to pay their own tax. So a lot of times they have multiple people that they work for. And so when you're hiring an independent contractor, that's something to take into consideration, right? And you want to make sure that these independent contractors are actually helping you really grow your company. Another hidden cost, which I think is really, really, really important because it will cost you the most money, is incorrect classification. You know what? Let me go back to real quick. The contract workers will have less loyalty for your company. I wanted to share an example of one of our clients who has restructured the business, and they put in a lot of independent contractor agreements, and these independent contractor agreements really helped outline the scope of work for the independent contractors. Well, once our client implemented the independent contractor agreements, several of the independent contractors left, because these independent contractor agreements actually said that the projects were due at a certain date and time, and that there had to be a certain level of accuracy that's done with these these projects that they're working on. So once they put in those pieces to that contractor agreement, a lot of these employees left. A lot of these contractors left because they did not want this language into the independent contractor agreement. So when we talk about having less loyalty, these independent contractors didn't have any loyalty at all because they were just collecting a check, and they didn't really care about if they were what they were doing to the company. So we always recommend, when you have an independent contractor, you always want to have some sort of agreement with them. And we'll talk about later this week about what an independent contractor agreement should have, what it should look like, what are some pieces that you need to make sure that's in it, what are some other areas that you want to make sure that's included in that to make sure that your business is protected, right? So going on to incorrect classification. Now, many small businesses rely on independent contractors as freelance workers because they're more flexible, not to mention cheaper. However, the IRS warns that employers may end up paying more in the long run for this game of dodging the system. And so what happens is that independent contractors are, like I said, do not have fixed hours. So they do not work from 9 to 5. So if you're telling your independent contractor you have to work from 9 to 5, you're breaking the law. And so those things are punishable by fines and fees. And the labor board usually does not look highly on people that are trying to game the system. And so usually they max out the fees that are amounted to independent contractors for employers that are trying to say that they're independent contractors versus when they're really an employee. And so if you have specific questions about, you definitely want to talk to us. There are not just the hours, but the way, if you're requiring them to use your computer, that's a way that can actually misclassify an independent contractor versus an employee if they're doing similar job. So like, let's say, for example, if you are in the food service business and you are hiring an independent contractor to just cut up vegetables, that would not work because it's basically part of running a restaurant. So you want to be very careful around what you make your independent contractors do and what they don't do. And so we'll talk about this more in detail this week about some of the pros and cons about having an independent contractor versus an employee. Today we're only specifically talking about some of the hidden costs around having an independent contractor versus an employee. So you probably are wondering, how would I determine if I have a independent contractor versus an employee? In the end, your best answer to the contract versus full-time worker debate could be either or even a combination of, right? Ultimately, the most cost-effective choice for your business is going to be the one that allows you to thrive in the current market while keeping an eye on the years ahead. So a lot of times employee independent contractors don't necessarily, they end up saving you money in the short term, but in the long term, they actually cost you money. And so, you want to carefully consider the current and future needs of your business, right? So maybe currently you need an independent contractor so that you can save on, because you don't have enough work for them and you just want them part-time and they can do some administrative tasks for you. But then what happens if, you start growing and you need to start bringing them on more, and you need to start saying, hey, I need for you to work 9 to 5, and I need for you to be this done to be at a certain time, and I need for you to deliver this project at a certain level of quality. Those are the things you want to consider as you're moving forward in your business. So maybe you want to hire them as a part-time employee and then convert them to a full-time employee versus an independent contractor to a full-time employee. So those are conversations that you definitely want to have with someone who has seen both sides and understands what are the tax complications and tax considerations on having an independent contractor versus having an employee, right? The other thing you want to carefully consider when you're talking about independent contractors versus employees is the cost benefit of long-term relationships versus short-term responsibility. So what I mean by that is, if you want to have somebody that's going to stick around with your company for a long time, that you're actually going to be able to train, that you're actually going to be able to help grow in the company with you, then you may want to consider having them an employee versus an independent contractor. Because more than likely, the independent contractors are not going to be completely on board with your company because they have several other companies that they're going to be working for. So you want to make sure that you consider the long-term relationship of your independent contractor or your employee versus the short-term responsibility. And then also, like I said, you want to determine the legal liabilities of potential misclassification on independent contractors, because that's where you actually will get into a lot of trouble. And there are certain ways that you can get slapped with hefty fines and fees, especially here in the state of California. Like I said, the labor board really tries to look out for employers that are trying to game the system. And so you want to make sure that you're not one of those employees. So you'll need to scrutinize all of these considerations carefully to make sure you bring in the correct person to help run your business, whether that's going to be an independent contractor or an employee. Now, you're probably after this episode, you'll probably have lots of specific questions about an independent contractor and the cost benefit analysis and what's an independent contractor versus an employee and the difficult times that you may have. Really determining, maybe you've already done some things that really may reclassify your independent contractor to an employee. Well, the best thing that I can say to do is you want to have a conversation with Vidal. You want to explain to him the complete story, the complete situation. He'll be able to really give you an idea of how you need to manage through that and some possible ways to actually make sure that your business is protected from independent contractors, so that you can make sure that you keep your your personal finances in order. So last week we talked about protecting your business, and by having a conversation with Vidal, he'll be able to really help you protect your business with you bringing on independent contractors, right? So that's it for today's Lunch with a Shark. But if you want to have additional episodes of Lunch with a Shark, right, one of the great places to do that is Spotify. Spotify is a place where you can get a lot of different episodes of Lunch with a Shark. We have over 170 episodes that you can actually check out there. We're about here to, I think next month we'll actually be celebrating our 1-year anniversary of doing Lunch with a Shark. So it's actually an exciting time, and it's actually kind of cool to see the big episodes to what we're doing today. So make sure you check out Spotify. So to actually subscribe on Spotify, you want to open Spotify. Oh, sorry, I should be like Vidal and say, Jesus, take the wheel and play the video. So you want to go into Spotify. At the top, you want to go in the search bar at the top and type in Lunch with a Shark. You'll see our logo there. This is Lunch with a Shark. You want to go in there and click it. And then you want to go right under the title. You do the green play button or the follow button. The follow is on the right-hand side. You want to click that, and then you'll get all the episodes once we play the new Lunch with the Shark episodes on Spotify. So make sure you sign up for your conversation with Vidal today. And then, as we do with every Lunch with the Shark, today's quote is from Thomas Watson Sr. He's chairman and CEO of International Business Machines, otherwise known as computer manufacturer IBM, right? And he says, to be successful, you have to have your heart in the business and your business in your heart. So for those of you that are entrepreneurs, you really can appreciate that. So once again, today's quote is by Thomas Watson Sr., chairman and CEO of IBM. And he says, to be successful, you have to have your heart in your business and your business in your heart. So thank you so much for joining us on Lunch with a Shark today. Vidal will be back tomorrow, and he'll give you more information about independent contractors. And I hope you have a great day, and ciao.
Thank you for listening to Lunch with a Shark. If you would like to set up a consultation with the Shark CFO, Vidal Espinosa, visit his website www.invictus-advisors.com, and don't forget to subscribe on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and LinkedIn.